you guys been doing?
I'm kicking it. You know, life's full of up and downs, but we got to press forward.
I got temporarily famous on TikTok before they shadow banned me because of one singular word.
Shout out to the commies.
Yeah.
They're not true commies, but we're real push past it.
All right, Tyler, it's a joke. Move past it.
I am moving past it because they're not true commies.
Yeah, but your face doesn't say you're moving past. Just all right. Welcome to the Ohio Boys podcast. It's September 18th as of recording this.
Hi, hello.
We're with Meghan because Xavier's celebrating his birthday. He's out in Schittsburg, so that's his fault, not ours.
What's up, everybody?
Hello, happy birthday to the boy.
Yeah, yes. Everybody say happy birthday to Xavier.
Happy birthday, dude.
Yeah.
Big 21.
Yes.
Also, to clear any confusion, I am also HR.
Yes, this is HR.
Fact checker.
Fact checker, HR.
Whatever the words are used.
Hey, that's
me.
her. That's her. If we refer to a female and a non-degrading.
Oh, that's another one. Residential female input.
Yeah.
Residential feminist.
If we're talking about her, it's probably in a very nice manner, not in a degrading manner. Like we talk about most of these birds.
I thought he was about to say in a very. I wasn't sure where he was going with that.
These birds.
These birds. But welcome back to the pod.
Yeah. We got a couple of topics today.
Today we will be talking about the Lil Nas project that just came out. His album. I don't know how to say the word, then say the name.
Montero.
Yeah, Montero. That's how you say it.
Lots of emotions.
Yeah. So we're gonna talk about that, and then we're also gonna just discuss about why we weren't here last week. And the Browns and how that went down, and our opinions and what just how we think the season's gonna go, and all that other good stuff.
And then UFC 266 coming up, right, Phil?
Yeah. That is
headlines
next week,
there.
I think the 25th.
The return of Nick Diaz.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
We need at least one Diaz at all times.
Of course.
Oof. We will talk about this when we get into the UFC section, but Jorge versus Jake Paul. Wow. He really wants Cuban Jesus.
What a clown show.
Masvidal?
Yeah, he wants Masvidal. I don't think he wants Masvidal. So let's get right into it. So if you are not aware, Friday, September 17th, Lil Nas X dropped his new album called Montero. If you don't know, you should know. It's a thing. It's a big thing. He's
pregnant. He was pregnant. He gave birth.
He did give birth to this album.
He gave birth.
He
to this
roasted
album.
himself on a live stream.
Yeah.
The marketing for this album was absolutely ridiculous, and I loved every minute of it.
Oh, me too.
was perfect.
His Instagram
It
has been priceless for the past month.
Him being pregnant, having the whole like the baby shower video that he put out, the random billboards.
I don't know. Did you see the clip of him giving birth?
Yes.
Oh my God. So priceless. And then the little Montero show.
The little contractions.
I don't follow him on Instagram, so I can't speak to any of
You can find the clips on his YouTube.
I saw the billboards and all that, but other than that, I haven't. I'm like, I don't.
He's a really funny guy.
He is very funny.
The little Montero show bit was hilarious too.
Mm-hmm. The way he runs his marketing and his social medias is brilliant. It absolutely.
It is how 6ix9ine runs his shit, just a little less.
He runs it a lot better than 6ix9ine.
I wouldn't say
in a different way.
Less
no pedophilic tendencies involved.
Exactly.
Well, that wasn't part of his marketing. That was shit that happened.
That
in the
got
background.
him more. I know more about that than I know about any of his marketing techniques.
Well, that's not.
That says something.
Lil Nas X is everywhere.
You catching the case isn't marketing. That's just bad.
Yeah, it was
that's
bad
not
PR.
that's not marketing. But I would say because 6ix9ine's shit is to troll other people and kind of like get underneath people's skin. I think he trolls, but he doesn't troll to try to get.
He's a lighthearted troll. He's there for the fun.
Disagree. I think he's a heavy troll. I just don't think that I don't think he is. He's trying to get underneath people's skin.
He is. Just lightly.
I disagree.
Just lightly. Under the surface, little tickle. Then he leaves and moves on to something else.
True. I agree.
I will use the term underneath and tickle.
He doesn't deeply root himself in anything.
I would say I think he just does it in a less dangerous way because Tekashi kind of talks about people who have died and how fuck your dead homies and shit like that.
Well, because he's not a fucking ingrate asshole.
But
like I think 6ix9ine is. 6ix9ine is there just to stir up shit.
Yeah, just to be controversial, just to make headlines, just to put out a single that's got a crazy video and he's talking shit about people, so he catches a bunch of views and it's all a very big flash in the pan kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. Lil Nas X is there just to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Have fun, but he's still there to troll. He trolls people.
And his humor's right up my alley. Like, and the fact that he posts like, you know, those like weirdly edited music videos.
Yeah.
How he promotes those every single time he sees one that's fucking hilarious. I love that.
He trolls himself.
He trolls.
Yeah.
He has.
He's got a good sense of humor.
He posted one on his YouTube channel. Actually, he posted the music video for Industry Baby with no music.
Ugh,
yeah.
The slapping noises.
Oh man.
That's all I can hear now.
Oh man.
The wet slaps.
Well, for as much as we all love his marketing, what it really comes down to is the music. So Montero, the album. I guess I'll start it off. I give this album a 3 out of 5. I think there's a lot of things that were good about this album. It is definitely worth your time to check it out. But do I think it is going to be a lot of people's favorite album? Is it album of the year? No.
It's got a lot of great songs on it, though.
There were some great songs, some very great features, although I feel like on certain songs he was kind of carried by his features. Yeah. Like, for instance, the song he had with Megan Thee Stallion. I think Meg carried him on that one.
Yeah, but then like Scoop is probably the worst song.
I disagree.
That Doja Cat song was the worst feature by far.
I think Doja was great on that song.
No.
I think he dropped the ball on that song.
He dropped the ball and she dropped the. It wasn't a good song at all.
She had I think like a 30 seconds. She had she's 30 seconds to get out whatever because a lot of the songs on the album are short. So it's a 2 minute song, 2 minute 30-second song, and she's 30 seconds to get off her shit to get her shit off, and she got her shit off in her 30 seconds, and it was heat. He dropped in for 2 minutes of him being on that. It was bland.
It wasn't even that heat. It wasn't great at all by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think it's one of the stronger songs, but I think Doja's part on that song made that song better. If that song was straight Nas X, I think that song would have. I don't think it does anything. Personally, my opinion, out of 5, I would give this album a 2. It's there. It's cool.
Yeah, it's not Drake.
It's not.
If there was a Drake feature, it's a 5.
Oh, there you
go. That's actually a lie. I love Tyler's album. I've said multiple times I think Tyler's album is better than Drake's, but you know it is what it is. I just think that this is a good album. It's a mid album. It's nothing.
It's an evolution of Lil Nas X's music, and it's going in the right direction.
I don't think it's an evolution. I think if you look at this, if you compare this to 7, this is very much on par with 7 was.
No, this is better than 7.
Barely, not really.
I mean, I would say it's better than 7, but it also has just more to offer than 7. It was a much longer track list. There was much more features. There was a lot more that was able to be showcased with the runtime that he was able to produce with this album rather than the small 7 EP. Go ahead, HR.
I just think so I feel the album kind of like flows through his emotions so far since he's been in the industry. Mm-hmm. And it started out with Montero, which was like his biggest hit. And then it kind of continued that emotional kind of feeling through Industry Baby. And then by the end, it was just like, it was the ballad with Miley Cyrus at the end. And it just kind of like faded out. Mm-hmm. And it kind of went through the frustration that he went through. He even like apologized. And one of the lyrics was like, I apologize, but I don't for who I am kind of thing. And it was it's like my favorite song personally is the one with Miley Cyrus.
Just it was a good song.
The lower register and the use of halftones he used just kind of hit deep in my soul because that's just kind of what I love. But yeah.
And I think the reason, I think he cared about it a lot more because of the message, honestly.
Yeah.
The fact that there was a message and it flowed, the album flowed very well with the message he wanted to create was kind of his frustrations with the industry and how he's kind of coping with it. It just seemed like for that reason, it's better than 7 because there's more feeling and there's more passion in this album as compared to what he had out before.
I do think one mistake he made was releasing the 2 biggest songs on the album.
Yeah, a lot of the singles were the best songs on the album.
Yeah.
By far.
I don't think it's a mistake. It's a marketing technique. If you were to say, if you know J. Cole, one of J. Cole's I Let Nas Down, he kind of talks about how the industry works and how in that song how you are expected to have a single before you can release your album. Like a single needs to land before the album lands, because if the single does good, then that gives the label or whoever's putting money behind you, all right, they're gonna get their money's worth after they if they put this money into you putting an album out. So they need a single to make sure that, all right, just to test the waters, see where the water's at. And he's that new of an artist, he's that raw of an artist that he would have to do something in the sense of put a single out, let's see what it does. Also, it helps with streaming because a lot of those streams from those 2 songs will get kicked back to the album. So that way it helps the streaming numbers. It helps everything do a little bit better than helps everything do a little bit better that number wise. And
as even piggybacking off the streaming part is that people going back to the artist page, or at least on Spotify, like I follow a couple of artists. If I see they drop a single, I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about that artist, right? Because they just dropped a new single. And with Nas X, he dropped them a few months apart because Montero came out in May? Something like that?
I think so.
April. Because
April
I was
or May?
listening to it at April's birthday party on the way to it on April 4th.
and then 3 months later in July, right? Or is it July or August?
August was industry.
I think it was end of July, early August, something like that.
And I think end of July, early August that you got Industry Baby.
Yeah, because and then we're here in September, right? Yeah. Dropped the album, and people had their eyes on the album because of the quality music that got dropped before the album. There was 120,000 people in that live stream to drop his music.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I would like to discuss a less important aspect of the album, but one thing that I think a lot of artists have put less focus on in the modern era, and that is cover art. I very much enjoyed the cover art for Montero. The whole, the very bright, almost kind of pastel-y in the color tones, like the Garden of Eden-esque visuals. I loved it. I think it was great. I think a lot of artists should put more focus on cover art, because before you even listen to an album, the cover art, that what you see on the CD, that can just catch people's eyes. I could never have heard of Lil Nas X or anything like that before, and I could see that CD and it kind of catches my eye. It draws my attention into it.
And he definitely puts a lot of attention in because he knows those visuals get his music out to more people. Because of the Montero music video of him, being butt-ass naked,
working on the devil.
He pretty much
working on the devil, like stuff like that. He knows is gonna get shared, and you know what? It grew him as an artist.
Personally, I would say this. I would say, if you were to look at most of Trippie Redd's album covers, I think Trippie has always done a great job at making sure the cover art for his stuff is great. It looks nice. It's there. I would say, there are a few artists that I feel like have and do take a lot of pride in what they put out, like especially not just the music but also the art, the cover art that the music is on. I feel like it is kind of a lost art since everything is just streaming and people just throw music in the playlist, and you just see either a black or a white background and the name of the song, and rarely do people actually go out and buy let's say CDs, or they go buy vinyls or anything like that. So I do think it is a lost art, but I feel like especially this year I've seen a lot of good album cover art. I'd just say Willow Smith's, I really enjoyed hers. Mm-hmm. Trippie Redd has always put out really good album cover art. Like his has always been very popping, very colorful, very out there. Juice WRLD's Legends Never Die. His stuff is all his stuff, even from Death Race to Love. Like that album cover inspired by what is the movie called? Death Race? Is it called Death Race?
Yeah, there is a Death Race movie.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm not incredibly into Juice WRLD. I have a lot of respect for him and I like his music, but I've just never been like a big fan, so it could have been Death Race.
But I mean his visuals, even like the songs on the album that don't have music videos, they all have some type of visual. If you guys go to the YouTube videos,
I found that very uniquely. When I was listening to the album, I was like, all right, this is kind of different, because like most people do not put like it, like most times they don't put an entire, like some songs they would have like a little slide, but on Spotify it is like a different, it's like a
30-second loop
it's
or
like
something.
A 30-second.
Right.
I'm like, okay, that's very creative. Like, because I've watched so many other people, and it's either certain songs will have a different one, or all the songs have the same 30-second loop,
right,
which I found very entertaining. I'm like, all right, cool. So like he's really like, at least behind like the imagery of it, like the fantasy of it.
Yeah, he cares about the way he looks, and this minimalist movement, like with the Kanye and the Drake album covers, I personally just think that's lazy. It's just an excuse to be lazy. It's just an excuse to be lazy. They just didn't have something.
I disagree. I think Drake's thing was very terrible. I don't know why he did that. I think the CLB was perfect the way that he had before. Kanye,
was there a second album cover?
At first it was like just like a CLB, and it was just three
no, but
letters.
that's lazy. Like, but Drake has lots of resources. He can make some great album covers. He just chooses not to.
Yes, but I feel like if you're so entrenched in the industry, it's like, are you like, I'm going to sell no matter what. I disagree with the Kanye thing.
But that's lazy.
I disagree with the Kanye thing because Kanye, he legit put on a mask. I think the album cover is just a reflection of the mask that he was wearing.
Right. There's aesthetic, but there's an aesthetic reason behind that pick, but it's still kind of lazy.
I mean,
I agree to an extent, but yet if the aesthetic is,
at least Kanye had something. At least Kanye had something. Drake, there's no excuse. That was just a shitty album cover. At least Kanye had a reason.
The Beatles did it.
That was
like half of their albums are just colors.
It was supposed to make a statement.
Yeah, there's plenty of artists all throughout many genres that'll just have a plain imageless album cover. It'll just be some color or something.
Weezer's one of them. They do that all the time.
Metallica did the Black Album.
Metallica.
Jay-Z did the Black Album.
AC/DC.
So then why is Drake so bad then?
Because Drake,
I don't listen to Drake, so I don't know.
It was corny. It was just pregnant. It was pregnant. It was a bunch of pregnant
Andy
females
Warhol
of different colors.
It was just emojis. It was really
Did
funny.
that like go with the album at all?
Kind of. I mean, he leaned into the whole like lover boy aspect.
Okay, so I actually just something. I just kind of like getting off topic real quick. Just a little quick thing. I saw something, and it was talking about how Certified Lover Boy. The only thing, it really wasn't about him being a lover boy or him being a lover of women. It's just about him being certified.
It's because he is a woman. He's a lesbian.
So
it's terrible. Huh?
I hate you.
That was a bad bar.
That song makes me so mad because I really enjoyed his verses on it, but like the hook and everything.
All the girls want girls. I think.
Yeah, girls want girls.
Baby.
That's why there's so many lesbians that say fuck men.
I say little baby.
It wasn't a bad song. It just makes like my stomach cringe, and it makes me mad.
It's just one of those cringy lines that you just don't forget. Like it destroys everything before that, and you just like him calling himself a lesbian just sticks in your head
because it's not just a line. It's a hook. It's in the hook.
Yeah, that's why presidents are remembered by their worst moments.
Yeah, a lot of people are.
But the album is more of him being certified through the industry. So if you look at it through the lens of, it's not, oh, I love women or women love me, just more, this is like, it is more his formula that he's created to be successful. That is what's certified. That, because when he first came in, a lot of his music was how you say lover boy-esque in the sense he talked about women, how he went through things with women and all that other stuff. But a lot of this isn't women related. I would say the first few songs are really about women, and after that, it's just industry talk. Even in the songs about the females or his troubles with girls, he's talking about industry. He's talking about, like, this is what I've been through since I've been in the industry, in this music making industry. So I feel like it's more of an industry thing than it is an actual like lover boy thing. And it's just something that I was watching Genius. And this lady was going off about, like, this is what the album really depicts and really sounds like. It's not really, the name misleads to what it actually is, which I thought sounded really nice. Which if you have time, go to YouTube, look up Genius, look up the Certified Lover Boy review, and they do a really good job breaking down this entire album and like how they felt about it. That was a really good thing. I do think the cover art was still lazy. He could have did better. But I personally feel like there are good artists. Like, I'll say Cole. I really did enjoy Cole's cover art. He
always does something with his cover art.
I think they're kind of hit or miss for me.
Yeah, but
some of them are really basic and they're kind of forgettable.
At least he attempts something.
Some of them are really nice.
He's a minimalist person. Like, his lifestyle is minimalist. Yeah. Like, if you look at Forest Hills Drive, that is very just basic, but it's good basic.
But it's iconic for a reason.
Because the album
would be a very
great.
mediocre album cover if it wasn't for that album being so good. That album is so highly revered through the fan base and just people that are casual J. Cole listeners. It is a great album and it deserves the flowers that it gets. But like Sideline Story, Forest Hills Drive, both of them I think have very boring and bland and forgettable album covers. I love the Born Sinner album cover.
Great
cover. For as much as I don't like the album KOD, I love the album cover for it.
I have a question. Good one. Do you like bright colors? Because I feel like it depends. Like, if you like bright, popping colors,
I do, but it's not like a necessity for me. Like,
sometimes it's nauseating to have too many bright colors at once.
You could have a very dark design or a very minimalist design, and it can work very well. Like, for instance, when you saw the album for the Black Panther movie, where it was just like the black background with like kind of the bone or like the tooth kind of necklace. I loved that. I thought that looked amazing.
Because
how do you feel about To Pimp a Butterfly album cover?
I liked it. It is not like. It's not my favorite Kendrick album cover or anything, but I didn't dislike it. While we're on the topic of album covers, do you guys have any ones that really stand out for this year? Because I feel like there has not been not very many ones that stand out to me personally.
It's just like something like you said, Phil. It's been lost until this Lil Nas X one, which I think this album art and the aesthetic of the album is probably the best so far, because people in the industry really, for some reason, I don't know if it's COVID and they can't like go out and get all these visuals live, or if it's just laziness or trying to save some money on making an album. But personally, like back in the day when I was at my music fandom peak, album covers would always be something I'd think about. And nowadays it just gets tossed under the wayside. It's a little frustrating.
I would honestly say I think Trippie Redd's is a lot better than this one. It's because when you look at colors, it's a lot of red, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of like just colors that I personally like. I love Trippie Redd's. I love Tyler's. Tyler was very simple, very kind of stupid, but I did like Tyler's cover art. His was good. I like Cole's. Cole's was good because it was very it was simple. Like the hoop in the background that's on fire is Cole. It's like, all right, it's simple. It's minimalist. Like, it's what he is, who he is. I think Dirks and Babies, well, their collab album, their collab art, it's not great. I would not say it's better than Nas X's, but it's good. It's like it's what you think of. It's a buddy cop it's a buddy cop album cover, which I really did enjoy.
To get away from that genre of music, but still talking about album covers, my favorite so far has been Greta Van Fleet's album that's got like the music that's popular. Like, it's suddenly just getting really popular right now. Like Heat Above and things like that. Like each song from that album has a different symbol to it. Like
shout out to the true revivers.
Yeah, there's
more so than MGK.
There is
I guess. I mean, if you want to call reviving just blatantly ripping off another band's sound.
I mean,
not anymore. Not anymore.
It is what it is.
This most
you gotta do what you gotta do.
Is what I'm talking about, and that's the one that's the more revival and not ripping people off.
Okay.
And the main album cover is like kind of really cool because it kind of reminds me almost of like the door from Neverending Story. I don't know if anybody understands what I'm talking about.
That's a great movie.
It is a great movie. Very sad in random places, and the song's annoying, but that's besides the point. The like door that like the light, I don't even know if it was the first or second one, but the light shines through, and it's kind of like that thing. That's the picture, and it kind of looks like the door.
Which one? Battle at Garden's Gate?
Yes, that one. And each song from that album has its own symbol. Like my favorite, I think it's called "Light My Love." I'm a fake fan. I don't know it that well, but Light My Love is my favorite because it's kind of like a ring, but it's got like a crisscross kind of thing on the one side, and it's each song just has its own thing. I love it. I love it so much, and the whole album just kind of hits my soul in a way that not a lot of music nowadays does for me.
And you know what? Something that's also gotten lost as far as, visuals, when a single drops and it's literally just the album cover, but in a different color, that pisses me off.
I get what you're saying.
Like Nas X, right? When he dropped Industry Baby, that's totally different cover art than Montero, right? Or even Greta Van Fleet, they have singles album like covers. You know what I'm saying? Like back in the day when they used to drop a few singles on a disc, not a disc.
CD is a disc.
No, because CDs.
VHR.
Back in the cassettes.
No. Yeah, they would do it for cassettes and they would do it for records.
Yeah. You'd get the small like demo discs.
Right. And it would be a totally different color, totally different aesthetic. And that was something that was kind of a nice little nugget of being a music fan.
Yeah.
It gave you a reason to collect all the singles and albums. Maybe you didn't like them, but it's like collecting like Pokemon cards, like, hey, that looks cool. I don't really care about the band or the music, but I like the album cover.
Personally, if I'm going to buy something, cool. It's nice to look at, but I want to make sure I want to listen to the shit.
Yeah,
are you listening?
I don't listen to
it.
I
ain't
about
to
to spend
CDs?
money on it.
Are you still listening to CDs, Tyler?
I still have a bunch of CDs.
There's nothing wrong with like
if I could get CDs, I already know I know a lot of the vinyls I already want. Bear Bongs and Bentleys. I think it's a basic album cover.
Vinyls are different though because they're a lot more expensive. But if we're talking about like CDs,
yeah, like
you can go to Goodwill and get like a stack of CDs for like $5. $1. Like this is a very cheap. This is a very cheap hobby to have, and I feel like that's a reason why you would buy CDs nowadays. Okay, that's a cool album cover. I'll buy it. Sure, I'll put it in the basket.
To be fair, also collections. Think of it like now you don't want to listen to it, but like later on in life, some people could be looking for an entire album set, and then it's worth so much more if you have the full set. Even if you don't listen to it, if you have the full set, you can get hella bank later on.
That's true.
Like the Beatles, not all their songs are like spot on hits, but like having that full like set.
If it gets big enough to have, if it gets big enough to have a niche fan base who searches for that stuff, then yeah.
Even
if it's not good music.
Not even a niche fan base. I went to the Exchange up the street from where I live, and they had a Tupac. They had like a few Tupac things, and they were like the two album, like they have vinyls. The two of them that they had was like $200 each. So it's like it's money.
Even the little promo stuff, like they would give out like little pens and cups and like little dish rags, like that. Those stuff go like that type of stuff goes for like hundreds of dollars depending on who it is.
I personally I think that he did a really good job with the album cover. I just think the quality of the music just didn't match the album.
I feel like he evolved a little bit though, because there are some good solo songs on that album that I would go back to.
Who are we talking about again?
Lil Nas X.
Oh, okay.
I found his venture into like a more rock sound.
That was a good idea.
I enjoy it, and I would want him to explore that idea more, but I don't think that it was one of the highlights of the album, at least in my
like
Void. Opinion.
Void is a good song. That was one of my favorites. I put that as a top 5 song on the album, and that was
feel that one.
That was just. I mean, it's a great headphone song. Like everything towards the end.
Top 5 of that album.
I didn't really like.
Well, there's only like 12.
You know what? So
top
it's
5.
This album's a little weird, right?
Judging.
Let me finish, because as far as like quality of song, no, it's not top 5. But I was listening to it in my headphones and just like staring at my ceiling, and I just enjoyed that song way too much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It just put me in a trance, like that, and that's what a lot of the songs are at the end of the album, is kind of a floating type feel.
Yes.
And kind of the way the music was written, there was a lot of buildup, a lot of floaty buildup, and no explosion. And when me and Megan were listening to that, we were like, okay, this is clear frustration. And they do that on purpose, just because, you know, they want you to kind of feel a little frustrated that there's no explosion at the end, no belt, no nothing, because he was frustrated, and now so are you. You kind of
music.
Yeah. Well, musically, you were blue-balled, yes, and it kind of is that frustration because there was no climax to those songs. And you know what? That might be why some people hate them more, but I just appreciate the vibes that they put out. I appreciate it's a great headphone listen if you're just doing nothing and you just want to space out. Great. Like the last 5-6 songs, including the Miley Cyrus one, great trance to just get lost.
All right, Tyler.
So, looking at the album and listening through the album, I would say my least favorite part of the album is when you get like Tells of Dominica to the end. I feel like we're all misses.
You cannot include Sun Goes Down in that. Sun Goes Down was so good.
It wasn't.
You didn't like Am I Dreaming?
I think
that was a great song.
I think it was good, but I don't like his verse. I don't like his verses. I love Miley. Miley sounds great on that song.
I thought they were both great in that song.
Am I Dreaming sounds like a Miley song that he gave that she gave to him, and he tried to fit on it. It sounds like a Miley song. That does not sound like a Lil Nas X song.
That fit the aesthetic of the 4 songs before it.
Also, I think
that was his style.
The best song, especially during the end, so after Tells of Dominica, I think it's Life After Salem. I really like
that's another good one. And that's his best solo song on the album.
I agree with you with that one. Yeah, I agree with you with that one. I think it is the best solo. It is the best solo song. I think that it was really dark. I think what he was trying to, especially after Tells of Dominica, he really tries to go with a kind of a pop punk type sound, kind of like I'd say more MGK-esque than true pop punk than anything else. And I think that Phil is
smiling for a reason.
I don't think he does it. He doesn't do it that well, but I think when he gets on Life After Salem, I think he kind of hits it on the hell. He kind of hits it on the head a little better than he did on any of the other any other tracks.
I think it's closer to Juice WRLD more than.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think
Juice definitely Juice closer WRLD, to a Juice WRLD type feel than MGK.
Anthem.
Life After Salem.
After Salem. Yeah. And no, just that whole stretch of 4
Juice
songs
WRLD
after.
Didn't really do pop punk.
No, because that's not what Lil Nas X is doing. He's just mixing rock music into what he's doing currently.
Just because there's rock elements doesn't immediately make it pop punk.
Exactly.
But I think that I would not, but with the elements of those songs, I would not say that he sounds anything like Juice WRLD. Like, which Juice WRLD are we talking about right
applying
here?
The same formula that Juice WRLD did. He applied a little bit of rock sound into his music that he's already good at. Pop punk only has like 2 chords. It's super basic. this music is way more complex than a pop punk song.
I don't think any of the beats on any of those songs are complex at all. I think it's very...
They're more complex than a pop punk song. Pop punk songs are very basic.
It depends on who you're listening to.
No.
I go off on a tirade here.
Go ahead, Phil.
I enjoy pop punk, and I think that a lot of people similar to our age range, you know, maybe early 20s, late teens and stuff, they can look back and they have a very big sense of nostalgia for pop punk. But when you really want to be critical, pop punk was not that good.
No,
pop
that's
punk
what I'm
was
saying.
Not that good.
It's
they
very
had a
basic.
couple bands that all had maybe 2 good albums, and then they didn't do shit unless they changed their sound.
Phil, the music mogul, is shitting on people right now.
Green Day doesn't get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame unless they start making radio music.
They're already in the Rock Hall.
No, that's what I'm saying. They don't get in without making that radio music after.
What do you mean? Like, are you talking about their later stuff or their early stuff?
Like, if they didn't deviate from what they were doing with their early stuff, they wouldn't have had as long of a career. Like Phil's saying, they had to change up their style to stay relevant, to get on the radio and have people listen to what they're doing.
I disagree because there is a niche. There's a great niche in the
niche
fact.
Isn't big enough.
No, I disagree because especially if you're a niche type of sound, I think especially if you doesn't do it to a point to where you break through to mainstream success. So like if you will be talking about a Nirvana, Pearl Jam, those type of
Wait, did you just call them punk?
No, they're not punk, but they are. But the sound, but they were a very niche sound that the industry at the time did not want to look at or did not want to notice because a lot of the sound at that time was very is hair metal. So now since transitioning
Wait, what?
Because
you're mixing up timelines.
No,
I get what you're saying, but you're mixing up timelines.
I gotta finish.
Gotta let the man get his
the burger ain't done yet.
Tyler,
the burger
you're rolling.
But the burger ain't done yet.
Listen, the burger is burning. It's turning into a hockey puck.
It's not. Guy. The burger is still pink. You gotta let the burger cook a little bit more. Hey, it's a well done. Let it get well done a little bit. Give me a second. So. This is all because you were saying, because you were talking about how that if they did not transition from their earlier sound, that they would not they couldn't achieve anything. So what I'm trying to say right now is that a lot of niche sounds, grunge is the time
not a niche sound.
Grunge is not.
Grunge was
the reason why grunge doesn't exist is because Kurt Cobain blew his head off.
Time out. Before, because in let's say the late 80s, early 90s, it was niche. It was very subjected to Seattle bands only. It was not a very out there type sound.
Pop punk never got to that size though, and it never will.
I
disagree.
Almost got to that
almost.
size. Pop punk
disagree.
was fucking massive in the early 2000s.
But that's because Kurt Cobain blew his head off.
No, that's cap.
No, because he made modern art on his.
No, grunge and pop punk are two different things.
Never speak of that like that again.
Okay, Tom, hold on. Hold on. But again, so at the time, the industry standard was hair metal. So you would get American Pie and things like that. You get a lot of
Did you just say American Pie was hair metal?
Okay, I meant
American Pie.
You said Miss American Pie.
No,
Bye Miss American Pie is hair metal.
No,
Tyler verified. Everybody get hip to this shit. All right.
Okay, cool, whatever. But as I was saying, it is very hair metal. Hair metal was the standard, especially late 80s.
Hair metal was a very flash in the pan thing.
It was not flash in the pan. It
died
over the entire decade.
And if you really want to talk about what was the big sound of the 80s, it wasn't hair metal. It was new wave. It was all the synthy shit.
It was.
If you really want to talk about what took over
pop
the 80s.
music took over the 80s. Pop music.
It depends on the artist. I wouldn't say
Michael Jackson.
Is Michael Jackson or
he's kind of 80s.
He did have very plenty of synth even in his early shit, but he also came up through like the disco era.
Fucking Mike was around since,
but people who grew up in that disco era made the pop music that took over in the 80s.
When I think of 80s synth, I'm thinking like Madonna, not like the
Madonna was huge back in the day.
Yes, I know, but I'm just talking about when I think of synth, I think of Madonna. I don't think of Michael Jackson.
I mean,
I
yeah.
get like not the Beach Boys. Oh, crap.
Michael Jackson was a bad example. My bad.
I don't think he was a bad example. I think he was a good example. I think there's a lot of songs that a lot of big Michael songs that he leans very heavy on synthetic type music, synthetic type beats.
But I mean,
And
the '80s, the music that took over the '80s was very PC.
I'm not talking about
very
music.
bland.
I'm just talking about rock music. I'm just talking about the one genre of music.
Okay, so you're talking about the rock music.
Like,
Got it.
rock music by itself, not everything in a together. Just rock music, the genre of music. It was very hairband.
Yeah, our parents had
very glamour.
shitty taste.
Exactly. You were kind of like what you kind of like.
Listens to these.
It's okay. Tony knows he has terrible taste.
Kind of like how rap is now, where it's very objectifying, very I'm a rock star and like I do all these drugs and I fuck all these women. That's what it was, and especially in the
men.
But what they were singing about when they were singing about
They
it,
weren't saying it.
yeah, I was to say when they were singing about
Freddie
it.
Mercury hit it. Until he died of AIDS.
When they were singing about it, they were very talking about females, but it was very much kind of not mainstream, but rock music was very like glamorizing the fact I'm a rock star. This is a rock star's life, and then when they're transitioning. A very kind of a transition that they really didn't want, but as they were transitioning to a grunge, to a more kind of to a very more newer of, oh, this is kind of dark, this is where society is, this isn't glamorizing life, this is like life is shitty, life is bad, I hate my life type music. And those bands, which were predominantly, a lot of them were predominantly Seattle local bands, took over. That's where Nirvana came from, a lot of bands like that. So,
but that sound dominated once it got big.
Yes, it did, because
for a reason.
Because that was a reflection. Because that was a reflection of society at the time. People were very angry.
Because they had to listen to Kiss.
Kiss actually had good music. Not all of it.
I wouldn't
Not
say
all of it.
I wouldn't say that, because like I've been watching
Kiss show.
I've been watching this WWE documentary, Raw is the Monday Night Wars, and at the time they would one of the biggest factors that keep coming back is people at the time were angry. People at the time were very kind of restless. Woodstock '99. The reason why that was low-key such a crap show that it was is because you have these very aggressive type bands, Korn and all these other like really aggressive bands. And aggressive people. These like the people who listened to these bands were aggressive. They were very like they weren't the people of the 60s that when they try to organize Woodstock '99, they weren't those same people. They were very more aggressive, very more out there. They were like, all right,
that started way back in the '60s, honestly.
But I don't think society
60s and the 70s.
I don't think society was as aggressive in the 60s.
Yes, it was.
In a different way.
The Rolling Stones did a USA tour, and they ended in LA in the Coliseum. And this is why, another tidbit in music history, this is why speakers get so loud, is because of the Rolling Stones. Because the crowd was so loud, nobody heard their music. And people were getting angry. They were pushing. The Hells Angels were fucking running security. So they just started beating the shit out of people. And they started beating the shit out of the Hells Angels. Like that, if anything, that's worse.
If the security guards just start punching me, yeah, I'm about to riot.
No, Tyler, they're not security guards.
Why are the security guards punching me?
They're biker gangs that peddle cocaine.
But Mark,
they're not security guards.
Mark, you just said that they were running security. So if they're running security, they're security guards.
Yeah, they took over the security. They said, all right, there's some law and order needs to come here. And we're a biker gang.
And if the biker gang starts punching on me, and they're like they're especially if they're not true security. Oh, hold on, yeah, I'm about to riot. Yeah. Why is this big biker man punching on me?
I want to see Tyler fight a Hell's Angel now.
I'd pay to see it.
We'd have to get a time machine for that because Hell's Angels ain't shit now.
That's true.
The law and order system fucked them up.
I think there is talent and there is something about being a niche artist. I think you could still make it big being a niche artist. I think you can still reach Hall of Fame,
but you can't
Hall of Fame levels by being a niche artist, tying this all back to Green Day. I think a lot of their earlier shit is probably their best shit. I feel like as the time went on, as they got more radio heavy, that's where people started to hate a little bit more on Green Day. That's where people started to kind of not be as impressed by the band because it wasn't impressive. It was like, all right, you sound like everybody else. You're riding a wave.
I think that like the middle of Green Day's career, like they had like one or two albums,
like
and then
Dookie.
it was Dookie, and then like Dookie to American Idiot, that whole span, which is what, like 96 to 2004,
something like that.
That was the best era. After that,
just straight radio, music, and then they left. Then when they left and then came back, they had a okay album, and then after that they just.
As for what I was saying earlier with my little tangent about pop punk being kind of overrated, people look back on it with very rose-tinted glasses. And
because
they forgive all of the little mistakes that were made through that. If we really want to talk about music that all sounds the same and was boring, look no further than the grunge era. Every band sounded the same, and half of them.
It was the same whining sound.
We're not very good.
You're shitting on my childhood serotonin.
That was the same whiny, desperate sound.
Literally, that's so mean.
I have contempt for the grunge era.
It's the only thing that brings.
I wish the grunge era was able to evolve.
I think a lot of grunge music wasn't that good to start, and then it just became a huge cultural movement, and then like you had very big figures like Nirvana was a decent band. It's not that they made bad music. It's just Nirvana would not have been Nirvana if Kurt Cobain wasn't such a big public figure.
Would these qualify as like
I agree.
grunge?
Kind of, yes, here and there.
So like
Puddle of Mud is kind of like grunge. Nickelback is like grunge adjacent. Like they came kind of from Nickelback is a band that gets
Canadian
too much
country
hate.
band. Canadian country band.
Yeah, it's like a weird kind of grungy.
They have their own genre. They're the Nickelback genre.
Stained. Go.
Stained? I'm not incredibly familiar with their discography, but what I have heard has been like it's good. Like I'm not.
Creed. Go.
Whoa! No. Creed is just Pearl Jam with nothing good.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Talk about plagiarizing sound.
God,
and the one thing about
bands that are like
one thing about the grunge era that's kind of unique is that there was a lot of bands that had one song and then disappeared.
What about Matchbox 20?
I feel like
I've only heard a handful of songs. I've enjoyed what I've heard, but I have not given their discography enough of a chance to be fully formed.
That's the thing about grunge is that sometimes one song is enough and then you move on to the next band.
But I feel like, again, with any type of major, especially with like rap nowadays, you would hear a lot of, let's say, one-off artists. That's because like it's so big, it's so expansive that you're not like it's not that it's hard to get into smaller artists, but everything sounds the same. People are in it for the money. They make the one song, get the royalties, and they leave.
And
like,
it's hard, to evolve something that's already so evolved and complex in a way. You know what I'm saying? And that's how like small bands and artists kind of, rise up, is because they have a unique sound, but it's really hard to make something unique
every time
when it's so evolved and so complex over like from the 80s to now is such a huge difference. It's so hard to make something unique that catch somebody's ear because it seems like it's already all been done.
I was about to say, if you were to look at like 90s hip hop, like one of the bigger standouts was the Wu-Tang, and that's because their production was a little bit more raw. It was a little bit more kind of
unorthodox.
Yes, it like the scratching was a lot different. Kanye in the early 2000s when he was coming out with 808 and Heartbreaks, his style of being more vulnerable in the sense that rap that
synthy.
Yeah, that not every rapper is this tough, hard guy that it's okay to have emotions. That it's okay to have like feelings in a sense.
And then even mixing in the gospel type aspect in his beats too.
Yeah, that whole like chipmunk soul, that is it was called from back in the day, like that college dropout, late registration. You can still see it through all of his albums throughout his career, but as that hit in like the height of the Bling era,
Right.
it was a very different sound.
And the Bling era, just wow.
The Bling era is horrible, but I have the same
Disagree.
nostalgia.
It's the 80s rock music of hip hop.
There are
It
plenty.
is beautiful. When I listen to a Paul Wall song, I get turned.
Yes, I enjoy listening to it, but it is not. The
Now we
best
all know
rap
what Tyler
music.
shakes his ass to when nobody's looking.
You're right. It's not the best, but what is it? Show Me Your Grill, like that. I listen growing up listening to that. I'm like, wow, this is a really
That
great
explains
song.
a lot.
Yeah, when you had just kind of
Your
ridiculous
Grill.
songs.
Waka
Just like-
Flocka Flame and
Waka, don't.
I wouldn't call
don't shit on
Flocka.
Waka.
I mean that's kind of a
I can
Flexi
only
era
think
thing.
of Pac-Man when people say Waka.
Flexi and Bling do not like. That's not mutually exclusive.
Right.
Waka
Okay.
Flocka, I feel like
My
I would
bad.
put him more into kind of a
A
vaguely
drug dealer.
kind of
The
like,
drug dealer
I don't
era.
wanna call it drill, but more towards drill than I would
Trap.
put it towards.
He's more trap than anything. Like
Bling.
he was. If you want to like look at early trap music,
Mhm.
especially in the South, I would look at Gucci. I would look at Young
T.I.
Jeezy, out Ti, Gucci, Waka.
T.I.
Dirty South, baby.
They were very. That was trap music. It kind of if you look at bling rappers, you look at like a Paul Wall or people of that ilk in the sense, rapping about their grills, rapping about their just their lifestyle, their just flossing a little bit. Wayne had a few things like that, but I feel like what differentiated Wayne from everybody was his lyrics, was his lyricism, but also it just
Does Soulja Boy count?
Soldier Boy, I wouldn't call it Bling
One and
era
done.
Because he
music.
dresses like Bling. He used to dress like Bling era.
Kind of.
not really. No, I
Kind of.
disagree because bling like they were grills.
It was a very
Soulja Boy didn't have
specific thing.
grills.
Yeah, he
Like-
did.
I mean, yeah, he had grills,
You
but
watch-
he wasn't like. It's not the same. It was not the same as the Bling era. When you compare Soldier Boy and his aesthetics to stuff like, I don't know, like people in the crunk scene and like Project Pat, Paul Wall, all of them. I don't think it's super
not
one to
a
one.
It's not a 1-for-1 comparison.
Soldier Boy, I feel like this is a weird way to put it, but I would call it ringtone rap.
Yes, he was the very first.
He got aluminum foil on his teeth.
Yeah.
That's not the same thing as Paul Wall. I can tell you,
No, it's
Paul,
not the same thing.
Paul
I'm
Wall
just
was
saying he
not wearing
dressed like
aluminum foil. Those were some they were glistening.
Diamonds, baby.
Hey, he could,
I don't know if it was
kill,
aluminum foil. I think it was more
Yeah,
like
he could
that
kill-
those fake diamonds
Hey, he could
that
kill
you
it.
find at like Marks or something.
Hey, Paul
Cubic
Wall,
zirconia.
Yeah,
Paul
cubic
Wall could start a
zirconia.
fire with his teeth.
Paul Wall
on
could
the right
cause a
day.
cold front if he
Hey,
took a deep breath. That's
Hey,
all I gotta
listen,
say.
Hey, listen, a cold fire. That's what Paul Wall was doing.
I don't know who this man is.
I don't know.
Paul
who he
Wall's
is
a
either.
legend. Please do some Googles later.
hey,
Go listen to Grills by Nelly with
Hey,
Paul
hey,
Wall and all them on
beautiful,
it. And you'll know
beautiful.
exactly what we're talking about. Shout out Nelly. He doesn't get as much respect as he deserves in the modern era.
Holy shit!
That's fair. I think that's fair. But I would actually say one of my bigger
White guy?
yeah, Paul Wall is white.
He was a white guy.
Oh my
And
God.
I don't know if he specifically manufactured, but he was kind of yes.
He's still
'Cause
dropping
he
music.
blew up again on Twitter. He got trending because people were talking about like Paul Wall's legacy, and then he was like, "Oh my God, people still care about me."
Oh yeah, because he went from 07 to 21.
Yeah, and he came back.
Oh my god, that man's
I
girl
feel
is
like-
ridiculous.
I
Yeah.
feel like in rap, especially
this
in
dropped this week. What? Oh my god.
especially if you look
Next
at
album review, Paul
Yeah,
Wall.
Paul Wall listening party.
that's crazy.
He's gonna outsell. He's gonna outsell Lil Nas X.
We're gonna have a whole
Sheesh.
video of just Tyler twerking to Paul Wall now.
Man, that's wild.
Tyler's definitely twerking to Paul
I feel
Wall.
like
Oh, yeah.
I feel like if you
I co-signed that rumor.
especially
Tyler's the biggest Paul Wall fan of.
I would say if you were to look at especially rap in the early 2000s. It's very regionalized. So like the South didn't sound the same thing as the North, like or New York, and New York didn't sound a lot like how it was in the Bay Area and LA and the West Coast. So I feel like it is very just dependent on where you are and like where you can drive to.
Yeah,
if you can drive there, you probably know the sound are probably a little bit more familiar. But if you have to fly there, that's where it would get a little bit more hectic.
This man's beard makes me uncomfortable.
Mark,
Chamillionaire. That is one hell of a name.
Another great one.
That screams 2000s bling era.
Yeah.
Another one. Mark, can we get a time check? 'Cause I feel like we've been talking about music a lot, and we
About
got some
50
sports
minutes.
to hit. Yeah.
All right.
Browns.
Let's bring up the Browns.
Yeah, that'll be a short talk.
Listen, guys, we lost that first game. We all knew it, but we were having
it slipped
hope.
through our fingers.
It was not a bad loss.
That was
I don't think. It was a
roller
very tough
coaster
team.
of emotions.
And that coach should have been ejected as well. That's all I gotta say.
That coach should have been ejected 100%.
I disagree. I don't think he should have been ejected. I don't think the Browns player should have been ejected either. I just
Fair
think
enough.
No, the Browns player definitely should have been ejected because he throat punched a coach.
He did not punch him. It wasn't even in the throat. He pushed his chest. He just has a fat ass hand, and it was a small man.
His
he
middle
pushed.
finger was up in that man's Adam's
was
apple.
Do you know how long his middle finger is, Mark?
Yo, I saw the close up,
Mark
all right? And we
sucked
caught
on
him in
it. That's how he
4K. We caught him in 4K. We also caught the coach in 4K. That's why I don't
Exactly.
understand why he wasn't ejected too. That's bullshit.
because
Whatever it was, it should have been.
okay.
both.
So what New York? If you guys do not understand what we're saying or understand or get what we are talking about right now, we're talking about Ronnie Harrison, the starting strong safety for the Cleveland Browns, number 33, I think.
Yep.
He was ejected in last Sunday's game for pushing one of the Chiefs coaches
After he was pushed.
but
Coach came out of nowhere.
It was a retaliation.
It was.
yes. So, but the reason why he was ejected, he was not ejected for the push. He was ejected because New York went back, and New York is where the NFL is based. They went back their main office. They went back. They looked at it live. They said no, throw him out, not because of pushing the coach, but for because it looked like he stomped on the player
Which
that
he
was
did
down.
not.
The
It
Chiefs were
wasn't
pushing
even
back
close.
on the guy on the ground.
He was
no,
walking.
no.
He was
The
walking
Chiefs-
away from the play, and the Chiefs player started rolling on his back, and Ronnie Harrison tripped over his knee. The coach saw that, pushed him over. He tripped over the player
Because the perception of from where the coach was, it looks like he's stepping back down on the player,
Which is stupid.
So he's trying to protect his player, which he should do. Because that's what
the coaches have no right to touch the players. It's up to the
Especially
other
if it's not
players
their
on his
players.
team to go protect him. His offensive line should have came there. That coach had no reason to come on the
I
field.
disagree. If you can like defend your player, you defend your player. Like,
No, that's not
you
his
shouldn't-
player. He's not the head coach.
It's not. But if
And the players' union is about to go after that coach too.
I don't think they are.
Yes,
For
they
what-
are. J.C.
and
Treader
then-
even came out after
and-
the game and said, "We
and
are
then
going to
do
investigate
you know what's
that
gonna
coach."
happen? That every player on that team is gonna be like, "Why are we going after him? You fucked up our agreement. These teams are worth billions of dollars, but we don't get no money. So if anything,
The coaches don't have an association. They have no representation.
I'm talking about the Players Association. So
Yeah.
all these Chiefs players are gonna legit look at him and say, "You're talking about your teammate getting ejected for a game. How about how the entire league is not making money, but this entire league is worth billions?"
This isn't the only time that happened. A coach isn't supposed to go and touch a player on the field of play, especially.
And guess what? The organization won't handle that.
No, they won't. That
You're
coach
right,
is
they
going to be
won't, because
untouched
guess
unless
what?
the league tells them
Because
to do
guess
something.
what? If you look at it, it looks
I
like
love how
he's
you
stepping.
just. I love how you just. Wait, hold
They'll
on.
handle it.
Pause for a
Never
second.
mind.
I love how you said and the organization is going to handle that. No,
And they're
Tyler.
not. They're not.
You're
'Cause
right.
It's their coach. It's a person on their staff, and to them, and to just how J.C. Treader said this. Oh, that's his teammate. Oh, that's our coach. Okay, J.C. Treader, do something.
Okay, but he came out and said stuff for other players
JC
who got touched by coaches.
If J.C. Treader ever says listen to this, you should do a better job on marketing for your player, for the entire league, for the players, for the players in the league.
That was
Then
fishy as hell.
Exactly,
Because
so
J.C. Treader
he needs to go
became
do something else.
But J.C.
Then-
Treader became president mid-negotiation with the owners. And that is a very sus timing. I feel like the owners started that negotiation before they had the election, and their election was kind of botched because players didn't really vote. Because I don't know why, for some reason they didn't. They were
against it. They did not feel like they were. They didn't want the extra week because they don't want that wear and tear.
But JC Treader wasn't there for the whole negotiation. There's a whole team of litigators for both sides.
So, but you're supposed to be representing the players. You're supposed to be negotiating for the players. Okay, but you're not negotiating correctly. If it's
already agreed upon, like they had even a problem with electing JC Treader as Player Association the president because they didn't get enough votes to complete the election.
But again, if he's the president, just how like in real life or in any organization, the head, that is where everything falls on. It is.
I also think it's kind of interesting that they chose an active player.
They always choose active players.
I think that's interesting.
NBA is an active player. MLB is active players.
But that doesn't make any. So how are you going to expect him to accurately represent the labor union and also prepare for himself getting into the season? You should have a retired player
because it makes more sense because no one would understand the harps and the gripes of someone playing than someone that is actually doing it, especially in
but they don't have time to accurately represent that person.
I disagree with you, Mark, because I feel like in any company, regardless of if it's sports, if it's a factory job, some sort of union job, a lot of the times you're going to see people that are high up in the unions that are still currently employed by that company.
But the people who are negotiating it, 9 times out of 10,
probably still working there.
We're doing that job, like former construction workers that also have law degrees.
Yeah, maybe, but I feel like more often than not, you
want somebody who is competent.
Reps.
You want somebody like JC Treader study for it. Yes, but there's a team of lawyers owned by billionaires that he has to deal with. That is not an easy task. That's a full-time job and then some.
The league, okay, let's just say they get to the Super Bowl. You legit have until February, until what? May, June. So you have about 7 months really, because
did you just say February to May? It's
no,
6 to 7 months.
You have 6 to 7 months because a player like JC Treader does not report to minicamp. He doesn't have to go to minicamp unless he wants to, especially voluntary minicamp. He doesn't have to really report to camp until late July. So he has the time.
Okay, but Tyler,
he has the time to actually look over things like this, to actually deal with things like this.
Say he's in the Super Bowl, right? The NFL has their winter meetings right after the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
So how much prep time does he have versus the billionaires with the large team of lawyers litigating against the players union? He's at a disadvantage by default just because of how much time he has to prepare.
But it's something that if you take the responsibility, you have to make time. It's like if I take
that's hard to do. It's like asking a 9-to-5er to have the same time on their hands to win a court case than actual prosecutor. That they're not going to win that case unless they're super talented, because they don't have the same time as the person whose actual job it is to do that.
I don't think that's a 1-for-1. I think that JC Treader has the resources. He has the people. He has the team. He's not going in there just by himself. The players union also have their own lawyers. So when he goes into litigation,
obviously not good ones.
Clearly, because I wouldn't say that the lawyers are good. I just think that the players didn't. At the time of the litigation, a lot of the players were going out and saying, no, we should not do this. But it was just, there were so many upsides. There was one, the base player. So like, let's say I'm on a minimum contract. Those people got more money. So they voted yes, because they got more money, and that helps them because that helps their back end. There are more players on the practice squad, which helped because now people's careers and people's dreams can last a little bit longer.
And there's more of them than there is the top. Yeah. And the people who had the problem with it the most are the people at the top.
Exactly, because no one wants to play for 17
and that's not how a union works.
Weeks.
That's exactly the opposite of how a union works. The collective is supposed to decide together what they want to do.
You have people at the
collective-
bottom voting against the people at the top. And there's not enough, like you were just saying, there's not enough people at the top. So all these practice squad people are like, yeah, I understand what the regular squad people are saying, but I don't want to be able to have to go out, get a second job, and then report to fucking practice.
So the
after my job.
So the president of the union is doing what he's supposed to do, right? And do what the collective, the biggest majority wants. The collective had to come to a vote, and the people at the top lost.
But I think he could have still did a better job than what he did. I think that
I don't think he had time because he was barely even elected before it was time to start litigating.
He was legit. He was done playing in January. So it's not where was the time? What were you doing?
But he wasn't elected Players Association president.
How? I would have to look up and see when he was doing it, but we could do it later.
But anyways, let's pivot here because
I agree. Looping back to the Browns-Chiefs game, I would like to say that for the incident with the player getting ejected, number one, I have a lot of respect for that coach because you are looking at a mountain of a man who does nothing but work out and train to smash people, wearing armor, and you're gonna push him?
Yeah.
Do you think he even realized who he was pushing, or he just saw a Brown's foot on his player?
He saw a foot on.
They're all murderers. They're mountains of flesh.
I think he just
That's
saw.
not true. Tyreek Hill's a tiny man.
But he's
still athletic enough to beat the goofy out of some middle-aged coach.
He's
Tyreek
only
Hill is
scary because
looking.
if he can break his own 2-year-old's arm, he could break mine like that. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Another thing to say is there was a lot of things that we did well
In
in that game.
No, in the whole game. There were some things that we did well the whole game.
What
did little
adjustments would you say we could make moving forward?
So I think the coach could do a better job sensing which running back is having more success, because there was a point where our left tackle got injured and Nick Chubb is a patient runner. He's a zone runner. Therefore, he's waiting a little bit longer in the backfield than most running backs, and then he's hitting the hole when he sees it. And everything is okay, Phil.
I didn't do anything.
Okay.
Your face did a thing.
So he's finding a gap in the offensive line while it's moving in one direction.
Shoot the gap.
Okay.
So therefore, he's sitting in the backfield a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Kareem Hunt, when that tackle got injured, was having slightly more success than Nick Chubb. I feel like he needs to have a better handle on that because Nick Chubb was getting tackled in the backfield on some big plays. And also just kind of getting a feel of when and when not to run play action, because sometimes I get it. Baker's really good at play action. That's kind of our bread and butter. But the formations that you run with play action need to look like you're going to run the football. When we had a 3 tight end set and they were all out wide and one receiver and then a running back in the backfield towards the end of the game, of course we think you're going to throw the football.
I disagree because
that's predictable play calling.
I don't think that's predictable play calling. You can run off of that play.
It's a bad idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea.
Because there's more guys in the box.
Okay.
They were running with 4 guys, and then they had 2 linebackers and a safety coming up.
So let's see. So you have 3 tight ends. Who's covering those tight ends? Because like you said, you would have to have 2 corners. You have to have 2 corners and a linebacker over there with the 2 tight ends, and then you have to have another corner with the other receiver over there.
Tyler,
Solo.
we weren't running Kareem Hunt that aggressively. We were throwing the ball to him.
You're talking about the set. You're talking about the set. So you would have what?
Set.
2 linebackers in the box. The safety would be over top. The 3 would be over top of the 3 corners.
But Chris Jones was
the 3 tight ends.
Chris Jones was doing what he wanted.
That's not on them. That's on the fact that the line's not blocking properly.
I'm a coach, I'm not going to make my players get set up for failure. If Chris Jones is getting penetration every single play, I want to put a tight end there to help out.
He's a defensive tackle. He played
more defensive end reps. He played more defensive end
inside.
They even made a point before the game that Chris Jones was going to play more defensive end, which he did.
But But on majority of his snaps, he lined up inside.
He lined up outside.
If he's lining up inside, there's nothing that he can do.
He lined up outside. That's how he got all his tackle for losses, and that's how he got all of his quarterback sacks.
And even if he is lining up outside, guess what? You take a guard, you take a tackle, and they push him. They do it all the time.
But when you have four down defensive linemen, then you have the rest of your guys going one-on-one. You need an extra tight end to at least rub or help out with Chris Jones so everybody else can have their assignment.
I disagree. I think that
that's setting up your players because you have your you have your right tackle who's getting smoked by Chris Jones. The tight end needs to help him out. You have a backup left tackle because Jedrick Wills was out of the game. He sprained his ankle and he's day-to-day currently. You cannot put the guy that you just subbed in and have him sit out on the island with that defensive end who's been playing the whole game. And I don't know how much you know about linemen, Tyler, but if you're just going in the game cold, that is not something you want to do with a guy who's just subbing into the game.
Okay, so I personally disagree with Mark on the fact that I think this is probably Stefanski's best called game.
I'm not saying it's bad.
I think he was aggressive. I think that he had the feel. I think where the lapse was is that the quarterback Baker Mayfield was not making the throws that he should have made. There were throws that he had to make and pressure time, and he could not make those throws.
But
not because the
sequence.
It is not.
No, he can make those throws, but it's the sequence leading up to that set the defense to.
If they
telegraphed to the defense what they were going to do. He wasn't
making them, and where champions are made are in the fourth quarter when you need to ice a game out, and he cannot ice.
But Tyler, I don't care what quarterback you are. I don't care if it's Tom Brady. If the plays aren't called correctly, and you telegraph to the defense what you're doing in the fourth quarter, which you don't want to do, which, like you said, the fourth quarter is the most important, especially when it's a tight game. If I'm telegraphing what I'm doing in the fourth quarter, the defense is going to have the advantage, which they did.
I don't think they were telegraphing anything. Baker Mayfield was
telegraphing where the ball was going to go. He did not suck. He was phenomenal.
He was trash
until the fourth quarter.
He was. Mark, he was a worse. He had one job: manage the game. He failed at that.
No,
yes.
He managed the game well until that one interception.
Mark, it's not till that one interception.
Yes, it was till that one interception.
Mark, it's when you had to go down the field and score, and he could not do that. When the running game and all that was legit done and out, and they knew what you were doing, like you were saying, and you had to throw, he could not make those throws. He could not be on time.
He could make those throws, but the problem is the pocket wasn't clean. The pocket wasn't clean because they telegraphed. They ran on first down with Nick Chubb, who got tackled in the backfield right before he threw the pick. So what do you think I'm going to do? You have to throw the football on 3rd and 10.
Okay, time out.
You have to throw the ball.
You're talking about telegraphing.
Yeah.
So the Chiefs were down that entire game. They had to come out of a hole. So what are they going to do? Were they going to run the ball? No, they're not a running team. They are a throw the ball over your head team.
They're going to throw the ball regardless.
So you know what they're going to do. And what did Patrick Mahomes do? Not clean pocket and everything. Guess what he did?
Comparing Baker Mayfield to Patrick Mahomes is not fair. You're comparing a generational talent to a good quarterback.
You're comparing a quarterback to a quarterback.
No, you're comparing a generational talent to a regular quarterback.
No, I agree with Tyler on this one. You can compare them. I mean, is it a completely fair comparison?
It's not fair at all.
No, but they're both play the same position. Baker just hasn't had the time to develop that Mahomes has had.
No, because there's certain intangibles that Mahomes has, and there's certain chemistry that he has with his coach.
Okay.
To where he has an advantage over a Stefanski and Baker Mayfield duo, because this is their first. This is their first
year.
Normal. Let me finish. First normal year with the offseason. Last year they didn't even fully install the offense until halfway through. Patrick Mahomes has been in the same offense for his 4th year being the starter.
Fourth year being
because he sat behind Alex Smith.
Right.
So you have a coach and a quarterback that have great chemistry with each other. Baker has only had really a half a season with the full offense under his belt. Okay. And Kevin Stefanski, the coach, has only had a half a season worth of the whole offense he was able to call.
But
he did have a full offseason this season. they did play a lot better than they did in the playoffs. The play calling, like Tyler said, was aggressive. They got ahead of the Chiefs. They followed the game plan to a T, and then when they lost that lead, and just like every other team, they couldn't come back.
Quarterback needs to thrive the most. I compare him to Derek Carr. When Derek Carr needed to make a play, he made the play. And him and John Gruden don't really get along all that well
at all.
But guess what?
He checked out of Gruden's play.
But when Derek Carr needed to make a play, what did he do? Made a play. So it is not the same. It is not the same thing. You can't just sit here and say, well, it's not fair. He hasn't had all this time, blah blah blah, and all that. When legit, Tyron Houston has only had an off season, but went out and
he had a full off
dusted a contender.
The Jacksonville Jaguars.
My bad. No, okay, listen. I'm not gonna lie to you. I forgot they played Jacksonville. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to everyone out there. I forgot they played Jacksonville. That's not a contender. That is a rebuilding team.
Okay, here's Baker's stats. 21 for 28. 321 yards before that interception. That is a perfect game up until he gets smacked in the foot and he falls over and throws that interception. You can't really ask him to do more than that.
Yes, you can.
You can always ask him to do more.
Mark.
We didn't. So that is a fault of the coach then.
I don't believe it's the fault of the coach. I think that in key areas, you gotta make your throws. If you're not making your throws, that's all it is.
Okay, but if the offensive line, bottom line is the team was down a little bit, and
I think
the game plan couldn't get executed in the fourth quarter, and that's why we threw the pick, because they got pressure. At the end of the game,
I would say one of the things that I feel like needs to be cleaned up over anything on that defense is very much the defense. I think that the D line, they got to get a lot more pressure. The interior doesn't help them. I wouldn't say the interior. I mean the pass rushers. Garrett wasn't beating on what's the face. He got one sack that game.
Well, because he was getting pressure, but the thing is, Mahomes was sliding out because your guys in the middle weren't getting push at all. So he was just slipping out when Myles Garrett was getting to him.
Garrett barely got to him. You would have to. I don't know how many pressures you have to look up how many pressures he had, because when I was watching the game,
5.
That's not good.
That is good.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
A typical pass rusher should have about 10 or 12 QB pressures
considering
in a game.
The middle of the defensive line is Garbo.
So it's
that. Something
I
they
think
need
the
to
linebacking core, it's young. They're trying to figure everything out. It's really sucked that they lost Anthony Walker.
He was the quarterback of the defense.
I think that's going to be a big influence. But other than that, I think the secondary, I think they're young. They get a hang of it, and that they'll get better.
I think, all in all, I think that this first game that we had against the Chiefs has really set the tone to let the rest of the leagues know we're not fucking around this year.
We're
not fucking around this year.
We're the fucking Browns.
Open the door is real.
I think maybe only the Ravens and I feel like the Steelers will give us trouble, but I feel like we'd beat the Steelers.
Yeah, because their defense is raw, but their offense cannot move the ball.
I see us doing very well this year, but on a lighter note, actually I shouldn't say a lighter note, but on a different note.
Don't overreact, guys. Don't overreact.
Next weekend, on September 25th, there is UFC 266.
Get into it.
Highly anticipated event. I've been waiting for this since they released the lineup on the cards.
There's a demon coming back.
I'll break down the main card, and I'll talk about a few prelim fighters that I think are very exciting prospects to watch.
Fuck Sugar. Just had to say that.
Dude. So I'm going to go from the bottom to the main event. To start the card off, in the women's flyweight division, 125, we got Jessica Andrade versus Cynthia Calvillo. I think Jessica Andrade is probably going to beat the brakes off of her because Jessica Andrade is a monster. A monster. And ever since she went to flyweight and stuff, she's looked incredible. Cut the hair short, started beating broads up. It's great. We got in the heavyweight division to follow that up. Curtis Blades, the perennial contender, He fights Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, I had a lot of hype for him when he first got signed and he made his debut and stuff.
Blades knock him out third.
I agree with that. I think that Blades is going to do well in this fight. Blades has only lost to the top of the top. He has 2 losses to Francis Ngannou, which pretty much everybody has lost to Francis Ngannou besides Stipe.
Only once.
Yeah, and even then, they're 1-for-1. And then he just got knocked out by Derek Lewis, but if you watch that fight, he was beating the dog shit out of Derek Lewis for the entire first round before he got caught in the beginning of the second.
And Derek Lewis is just a one-hitter quitter. Just if he can get that one hit off, it does wonders.
Derek Lewis has a great strategy of getting the shit beat out of him until he knocks you out. It's fun. Wrapping back to Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he is, I think, like 2-2 now in the UFC. He was a very exciting kickboxing prospect to come here, but he has very much underperformed. I feel like when he's fighting these big high profile fights, like when he fought Cyril Gane, he has definitely earned his nickname of Frozen Strike, where he's just very hesitant to throw, and he's just not doing enough to really pull through and
captivate
and get these victories. My official prediction, I got Curtis Blades. Moving on.
Certified.
The return of Nick Diaz. Has not fought since he fought Anderson Silva in 2015, which that fight is a classic. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Nick Diaz comes back to fight Robbie Lawler, which these two men have fought before. And Nick Diaz beat the brakes off of him way back in the day. I think 17 years ago. It was a rematch 17 years in the making.
Quick question.
Jeez.
Do you think the 6-year layoff is going to have any effect on him?
Of course. I mean, having any long layoff, even if it's just like a whole year because of an injury or
especially
because of time
fighting.
off, whatever, there is definitely a thing to be said for ring rust and staying active. I know not every fighter needs to fight twice a year to really keep that edge. Ring rust affects everybody differently, as you can look from Dominic Cruz. I know he's a very special talent, but he was coming back off of what I think a 3-year layoff after blowing one of his knees out, came back, did amazing. Shout out to Dominic Cruz, a legend of the game. My official prediction for Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler 2, I'm going to go with Nick Diaz again. I don't think that the ring rust will play as big of a factor for Nick Diaz as it would for some people, because just knowing what people know about the Diaz brothers, they smoke a lot of weed and they live in the gym. They train for triathlons, they run their BJJ and their boxing, and then they make club appearances. That's their whole bag, is just training and
that's the life
and kicking it. Very exciting fight for the welterweight division. Also, love to see Robbie Lawler come back. We haven't seen him since, I think, late 2019.
Oh, so he has a layoff too.
A little bit, but definitely not as large and daunting as Nick Diaz's was. His is pretty standard
it's not
for
like
somebody
he's
getting
fighting-
up there in age.
It's not like he's fighting a guy that just came off a fight.
This is true. Both of them, they're old. Nick Diaz is probably like 38. Robbie Lawler's 39. Both of them probably won't be in the UFC for very much longer. But former champion Robbie Lawler, got to put some respect on his name. Shout out Ruthless. For the co-main event of UFC 266.
I'm surprised it's a co-main event too.
Yes, Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy in the women's flyweight division. Can anybody bet against Valentina Shevchenko?
No.
The bullet clobbers everybody who's not Amanda Nunes, and Amanda Nunes is she's too strong. She-Hulk, like, just too much for people. Yes, she has that Francis Ngannou fuck you power that we do not see for a lot of fighters in the women's divisions.
I would say this. She has the fuck you power, but she also has the wrestling to back it up.
Yes,
so that way,
she
if it
has the
goes to the
technique.
ground, that she can screw you over as well as I would say Khabib or someone of that class. Not probably to the same degree, but she runs it. She runs her division.
She's
the
no
same way.
slouch. I get what
She
you're saying.
she is. Listen,
There's not many
There's not a lot of
there's
holes
not many
in her
fighters
game.
in the women's division that can compete, honestly.
I mean,
There's
it
not
depends
a-
on the weight class you look at, and it depends on the organization.
Well, I
because
mean, just in the UFC. I mean, there's the reason why she's a heavy favorite
Oh, yeah. Amanda Nunes, I mean, if you look at her 2 divisions, both of them are the weaker divisions of the 4 female divisions.
Right.
But that being said, I don't want to take anything away from what Amanda Nunes has accomplished. She is a very special talent. And she has proved that time and time again.
Phil, you couldn't take anything from her. She'll take you.
Oh, she beat the
she's
dog
scary.
shit out. She beat the goofy out of all of us.
You think like you like can I just have a photo? Like no.
Listen,
No,
if I see
I'm taking
Amanda
you.
Nunes in the dark alley chasing after me, I'm just saying, God, take me.
Yeah,
There's no point.
No, you better just pray.
She's gonna take
You better pray.
Have mercy.
Amanda Nunes, as she once said, I champ for a reason. Moving on to the main event. In the featherweight division, very exciting fight. Alexander Volkonovsky versus Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega is coming off of a victory for Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. A lot of people really touted this performance because Brian Ortega's rise to the title fight against Max Holloway before Max Holloway had lost the belt. Max Holloway beat the dog shit out of Brian Ortega. Just poured the volume on him. It is one of the most stellar performances you can find in a title fight, period, especially within that weight class. Max Holloway has a very rich history of just incredible title fight performances, and he took 2 years off. He really worked on his striking. He came back against the Korean Zombie, and he put on an amazing show. He pitched a shutout. That being said, I think that the Korean Zombie was just kind of like, he wasn't as active as he should have been, although he even stated that after he had been rocked in the second round, he never fully recovered, so yada, yada, yada.
I mean, he's not that much of an underdog either.
Yeah. That being said, the reigning champion, Alexander Volkanovski, is the champion for the reason, the man who has given Max Holloway his toughest fights to date. Going toe-to-toe with him. I mean, clearly winning the first fight, and then the second fight is highly debatable. If you want to really count damage, a lot of people say Max Holloway won the fight because he had a couple knockdowns. But if you want to...
Which is weird because, like, judging a card, that's got to be the hardest thing.
It is, because there's a lot of different criteria.
It's like, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize volume? Do you prioritize technique? Do you prioritize, the eye test of just who's having a better fight?
Right.
And how do you even like quantify? You have to quantify all those things into.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what a judge's scorecard looks like?
What do you mean? Like, you can see the judges' scorecards, and they'll read off the scorecards at the end of the night. You can see.
No, I mean,
the
like,
scorecard is
they,
just a number on in a box, and that's it.
It is the same as boxing scoring. So it's a 10-9 must system. No matter what, somebody's getting points similar to that. Unless you really beat the goofy out of somebody, then you can get a 10-8 or a very, very rare 10-7 round if you absolutely dominated the fight. But if you're handing somebody a 10-7 round, that fight probably should have been stopped in that round, to be honest.
Right.
No, I mean, like, do you know what they're like? What it looks like what they're scoring for? Like, what?
There are criteria that has been laid out, and it has changed over the years, but
it's not to my understanding, it's not really a concrete thing. It depends on where you're going, right?
It is a concrete thing, but it's still very subjective. Like the things that you would score the fight on, such as accuracy, volume, who has controlled the more dominant positions, who has done more damage, or at least has put their opponent in more dangerous positions. Those are things that they look out for a lot, but even then, from judge to judge, some value wrestling positions and ground dominance more than others would. Some value a stuffing the takedown more than multiple takedown attempts. Yeah, regardless if they were successful or not. I think my official prediction in this final fight is Alexander Volkanovski. For what he did to Max Holloway, to be able to shut down Max Holloway's game, I think Brian Ortega is going to come in and he's going to look really nice, but Volkanovski's the champion for the reason. And the only reason I could see him losing is him getting submitted because Brian Ortega was a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wizard.
So you think this fight either ends on the ground or on the scorecard?
Yes. I unless it's like a really late finish by Volkonovsky, and I could only see that happening if Ortega like gasses out really badly, like what happened in the Max Holloway and Brian Ortega fight. But after the 2-year layoff and coming back and looking as stellar as he did, putting the performance he did on Chan Sung Jung, I don't think that'll be an issue.
Volkanovski is more of a patient fighter.
Kind of, he's very methodical, but he's no stranger to getting into your face and making it a firefight.
Okay, so so it could possibly happen. Small chance, but
it's a tough one. And moving on to some of the very exciting prospects on the prelims, in the early prelims, we have Shamil Abdurakimov versus Chris Dawkis.
Are these females?
No.
Oh.
Those are males in the heavyweight division.
I was disappointed.
That first nigga had a very feminine name.
Shamil?
Yeah.
I
have a gut feeling that
sounds like an Arab.
Abdurakimov is going to pull it out. He's moving to the heavyweight division from the light heavyweight division, and Chris Dawkis is a good fighter, but he has not shown me anything that has been really super spectacular.
There's some two chunky guys.
I give a slight edge to Shamil. Dan Hooker versus Nasrat Hapkarast. I think that's how you say his name. If you're out there listening, sorry, man. I got to go with Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's got something to prove because he's on a 2-fight loss streak. He's very lengthy. He's in the top 10 for a reason. Dan Hooker is a very gritty, very tough fighter. He's hard to put down. He's hard to beat, but he is beatable. His record reflects that, and his performances also reflect that. Nasrat, very exciting contender. He has had some trouble breaking into the top 15 before, but this is a huge opportunity for him. I think that people are going to be surprised at how close this fight is, but I give Dan Hooker the edge.
He got worked.
Right.
Dan Hooker, wasn't his last fight versus Michael Chandler?
Yes, and I wouldn't even say he got worked. He got
was
caught.
Scared. He fought scared that whole time.
I mean,
very disappointing.
When you look at that fight, Michael Chandler was making his UFC debut, and he had an incredible amount of hype, and the entire narrative was Michael Chandler is this amazing wrestler, and he might take Dan Hooker down and just beat the shit out of him because of his wrestling skill and his explosive power. And if you watch what had happened, he shot. Well, he didn't shot. He faked the takedown. He threatened it, which got Dan Hooker to lower his hands down, thinking that he's going to defend the takedown, and then he popped up, hit him with a clean left hook, and sat him down.
That was a hard knockout to watch.
It was a brutal one. It was very fun.
And personally, I was rooting for Dan Hooker.
Same. I like Dan Hooker. He's a fun guy. Great personality.
It's really hard to come back from that.
Well, when you look at Dan Hooker's loss before that too, it was arguably fight of the year. It was him versus Dustin Poirier, in which he almost finished Dustin Poirier, and he won the first few rounds. It's just that wrestling edge in the gas tank put Poirier over in the final 3 rounds. Moving on, in the bantamweight division, we have Marlon Mouriez versus Marab Divisivali. I think that's how you say his last name. I got Marab on this one. Marab's a killer, and he just doesn't get the credit that he deserves because he's not as well known as someone like Marlon Mouriez. And Marlon Mouriez has been on a clear skid, so I don't know if he can pull this one through or not. I think Marab takes him down and kind of works him. That's who I'm picking. 2 more on this card. We got Uros Medic versus Jalen Turner. I think Uros Medic is a fucking killer, and he's just working his way up the cards right now. He's not a big name, but I might put a little parlay down and include him on it. I think that dude has a very promising future in the lightweight division. Is he ever going to be champion? Only time will tell. And then finally, one of the fights that I'm the most excited for, to be honest, in the women's flyweight division, Manon Fiore versus Mayra Bueno Silva. I think Manon Fiore is going to beat the brakes off this girl. Manon Fiore has come in with this high kickboxing skill. She's one of these French fighters, because there's been a few different French fighters that are making their way into the UFC. Look at Cyril Gane, for example. And they're showing that, hey, they're no slouches. And Manon Fiore...
You may not like the frogs, but
he's
the frogs...
a dog.
Frogs can jump.
Frogs could kick you in the fucking noggin, too. Manafiro has put a literal smackdown on 2 girls in a row. I think she continues that streak. That's my pick. That about wraps up all of the fights that I would be excited for. I mean, not to say that the other ones are boring or anything, but I think that these are the most notable ones, at least in my personal opinion. Very exciting card. Very exciting. I've been looking forward to this one for months.
And there's been a few lackluster main events.
A few here and there, but mostly on like the fight nights, like the smaller ones. I mean, the last pay-per-view that had a lackluster main event was Cyril Gane versus Derek Lewis, but that was mainly just because, I don't know, he beat Derek Lewis up because Derek Lewis was just kind of nervous and backing up the whole time, and that fight was weird in and of itself because they made that for an interim championship when it really shouldn't. It was all marketing, really. They just wanted to be able to put a heavyweight championship on the line and try and draw more eyes to it.
Hey, heavyweight?
Yeah. Francis Ngannou had won the belt, and then 3 months later, they said, Francis, we want you to fight again. And he said, this is too soon. I need a little more time. And they said, all right, fuck you, Francis. Interim heavyweight championship. So now, moving forward, we're going to have Cyril Gane versus Francis Ngannou. I think Cyril Gane is the more skilled fighter, but just because you are the more skilled fighter doesn't mean that you are guaranteed to win.
I don't know, that fuck you power.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
fuck you power.
That, and
he's a scary man.
Francis Ngannou is huge too. I think the weight advantage that he holds over people is a bit scary. That's like when Stipe fought him for the rematch. I think it was a dumb idea for Stipe to not bulk up. He came in at like 230 in a similar fashion that he did when he was in the middle of his rivalry with DC. And I think that moving forward, he has already said he wanted to bulk up to try and get to like 245 to fight Francis Ngannou again to close out their trilogy. I think that most of the success that Francis Ngannou had within that fight, stuffing Stipe's takedown and being able to secure a dominant position and kind of just wail on Stipe for a second, I think a lot of that came from Francis making improvements in his ground game. I don't want to downplay him on that, but the size advantage, the sheer like 25-pound advantage that he had on Stipe definitely played a big factor.
I think it's hard for Stipe to come back.
Stipe said he wants to come back for it. That's what he's training for.
But do we want to see that?
Yes. Stipe is the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. Is he the greatest heavyweight, period? Probably not.
Every time I see Stipe get punched in the face by Ngannou, I kind of feel a little bit of scary.
You just see like his head snap back, and you're like, oh wow.
And you're like, wait. Especially since he's from around where we've grown up all our lives, we're like, damn, like this man could die.
Right.
Like we could see black limos driving through our neighborhood.
I think
wild.
The most exciting fight for Stipe would be Stipe versus Jon Jones.
Yeah, I think that one's
Jon Jones I'd watch, and Cyril Gane versus Jon Jones.
Although I wish Stipe would have gotten Jon Jones earlier.
I don't think they would have got him that soon. I think it would have been. I think it would have been a little bit too soon to get Bones in there that early.
No, just earlier in Stipe's career.
Bones,
but he was a lightweight, so it was like you would have to force. And Bones was dominating the light heavyweight division.
Bones dominating the light heavyweight division is interesting because he got out of the light heavyweight division right as the rest of the division was starting to pick up. Because if you look at the light heavyweight division, it was one of the perennial divisions in the UFC. It was very exciting. That's where a lot of the stars came from when the UFC was in its inception. You look at some of the first big names like Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell. Yeah. I think that division has been kind of stale, and there hasn't been very many great contenders in years, and that has helped with Jon Jones's dominance. But now that there are some actual killers that are working their way up that division, Jon Jones has left it at the right time, even though Jon Jones has been teasing his move up to heavyweight for half a decade now. So
and he can't pass a fucking drug test.
He cannot. He can't. I mean, he can. He's done it before. But
they could do the old Jake Paul special and just forget about it.
Actually, they did get tested. they announced that Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley were not going to get tested because it wasn't for a belt, but they did get tested, and then they released the week after that both of them tested negative. Do I think that they're still juiced? Yeah. Jake Paul is definitely Paul's on the sauce. That dude's geared up.
Or he's got concrete in his
allegedly.
gloves.
I'm going to say that.
Actually, talking about Jake Paul, transitioning, still UFC talk. Jake Paul wanting Jorge.
I don't want that fight to happen simply because... One, I don't want to celebrate a Jorge Masvidal victory over Jake Paul because I'm a resident Jorge Masvidal hater. And then two, if Jake Paul beats Jorge Masvidal,
it's rigged. It's rigged.
It's
rigged.
probably
it's so
rigged.
It's rigged. It's rigged. He's paying these people to take faults. Listen, if he beats Jorge Masvidal, if somehow Jorge gets out his contract and like. He settles all his stuff with the UFC to go fight this man. And if he loses, it's rigged. And I'm not saying it's rigged because I don't like Jake Paul or anything like that. This man, Jorge, is
a dangerous striker.
A true fighter. The truest fighter that he will face in his career. Personally, the one person I know Mark keeps saying that Jake Paul should try to go see next. I think Tommy
should fight a boxer.
Yeah, I think Tommy Fury would be the next real kind of
Oh man, I hope he beats the dog shit out of Tommy Fury.
I don't think he would.
I don't think he beats the dog shit out of him, but I really just hope it happens.
I just think, it would give him, at least for people like me, would give me a reason to respect his fighting, because like you said, Phil, like there's a little bit of
there's always
it's
an
a little
air
sketchy
of fishiness to
like
the Jake Paul fights.
He went from Nate Robinson to Ben Askren, which was also a can crunch, and then his first fight, was a little fishy. I'm not gonna lie, it's a little fishy.
The Tyron did, I don't know. I think Tyron. In that fight, he should have threw more. I feel like
he wanted to.
I feel like if
and
his
just
output,
didn't.
I feel like if his output was more, if he would have had like just thrown a little bit more, I think he could have probably won that fight.
Yeah, I think he wanted to, and he just didn't because it could have been fixed.
Tyron Woodley, his nickname is the Chosen One, and people have been calling him the Frozen One for years. This is the same problem that he had back in the day in the UFC, is that he tries to set up that big fuck you overhand right, that big sniper shot, and he just lets people kind of pass him by on the numbers and kind of outwork him. I mean, to be fair, his streak of losses that ended up getting him cut from the UFC, a lot of it was him getting out-grappled by people. But that being said, this lack of volume and this lack of like kind of killer instinct, for lack of a term, has been a problem in Tyron Woodley's career since way back in the day.
I have a question about that fight.
Go ahead.
Especially like, I guess, just a boxing question in general. So when Jake Paul got put through the ropes, almost fell out of the ring, is it like a rule, like, okay, if he's out of the ring, like you can't go after him?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to fight in the ring. And that
because I didn't see like a referee stop or anything, and that was one of the big knocks on that fight for Woodley, is why didn't he keep attacking after that moment?
Because like once they go into the ring, once they go into the ropes, especially like that, because he
I don't think he was hurt as much as people say that Jake Paul was like wobbled.
I think he was.
I don't think he was wobbled, because if he was really wobbled, he recovered incredibly quickly.
Because
Woodley didn't do anything after that.
Because he got him once he shook him, and he fell, and Woodley stepped back like, all right, he should stop this.
I feel like it was more of a balance thing than an actual damage thing, because he hit him, he bounced off the ropes, and then right after he bounced off the ropes, Jake looked fine. I think people just don't like Jake Paul, and I really want to see him hurt.
He could take one punch. That was like the one punch Woodley landed clean.
I would say,
and then nothing before that and nothing after that he took. So maybe he can recover from one punch.
Could he have been finished in that moment? Yes. I'm not saying he couldn't have, but I do think that people are upselling the amount of damage that Jake was in.
don't think that throughout the entirety of the fight that he was hurt that badly. It did seem like there were a few instances where he was kind of shying away a little bit. Like, all right, I don't want to take a punch here. Like he was blocking his head, blocking his body a little bit more when Tyron got a little bit closer, and he didn't.
Which is what he should have done. He should have got up into Jake's body and just started working him.
Both of them seemed very nervous to not want to gas out. You could see that throughout the fight. Like, I feel like that is one of the leading causes of Tyron Woodley's lack of activity.
Or they're just holding it to make the pay-per-view longer.
That's true.
No, I wouldn't say to make the pay-per-view longer. I would say that he was very much. I think I agree with Phil. It was more gassing. I think that Tyron thought he could win on the cards. So he thought, I'm going to let this kid just throw all these punches.
We're going to burn out this round and let Jake kind of gas himself out and then pick it up later.
I think that he thought he was going to land more impressive hits on Jake Paul. So that way he'll win more off like, oh, I kind of hurt him more.
Or the bigger moments.
I had the bigger moments. But it's just the fact that.
That's not how it works.
Not complete. That's not really.
It's part of the scoring. But
I'd say it's kind of like he.
Let's wrap it up.
All right. So listen, it's been a fun day. We love all of you out there listening. We're sorry about last week and not being able to release an episode. We
got an extra long episode for a reason. Don't worry.
Exactly. Yeah. We love you. We love everybody out there. Thank you for listening. Remember, if you follow us on Instagram at OhioBoys Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at OhioBoisPodcast. Make sure you follow us on SoundCloud too, so that way when we do post, you're updated and you don't have to just wait for our Instagram post. Spread us around, share us, please help us grow. We're just trying to get this out here for more people. We got big things planned. We're trying to get out. We're just trying to do more for you guys.
Get some guests. Get some more entertainment.
We just really want to grow the community. We want to grow our family here. We want to grow the boys. So help us out, spread us out.
We also very much appreciate fan interaction. So if there is any specific people, any specific topics you'd like to hear us cover, any guests you would like to see on, please don't hesitate. Go ahead and send us a message on one of our socials or leave some comments.
Right, because we got some guests on the back burner.
If you have any suggestions, or we'll be posting a few polls on our Instagram soon. If you have any suggestions, DM us, hit us up. Just like something that you would like to hear, that you would like to something that interests you. What interests you interests us.
Especially any locals, like local artists, new types of businesses, whatever you guys want.
Yeah. Support local artists.
Support local businesses. Support local period.
Other than that, that's it. It's been your boys. It's been Tyler.
What's up? Deuces.
It's been Mark.
It's Megan.
Have a good one, y'all.